everyone. My name is Ella Rivkin. I'm your host, and today I have a pleasure to introduce you to a remarkable guest, Jake Cortez.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Jake Cortez is not just an international best-selling author, but he is also an expert in sales, leadership, as well as in investments. What makes this conversation very unique today and very special is that we have a privilege of actually sitting down and interacting and asking Jake questions to how actually he got to where he is today. And then also I was actually very blessed to interact and meet Jake on a personal level through Tony Robbins' Platinum Group.
Yes.
So Jake, it's very fantastic and it's very great that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. And you have a very interesting journey of mastering the art of sales for over the 2 decades, and now also being the real estate, having the real estate portfolio, the real estate portfolio of over 2,000 acres that you're owning right now, and then you're planning to build these mobile homes. So this is
Yes.
very inspiring. And then also your positive commitment to impact the world. This is
Yes.
absolutely incredible. Today, before we're going to start and dive into the questions that we have from our viewers, I would like to ask you if you can just share like what shaped you being a part of Tony Robbins community, being part of this influencing community of platinum members, like what shaped you to get to where you are right now? If you can just share with us any of these moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have a burning desire to continue to grow. Stagnation is a far greater pain than the pain that's encountered while confronting challenges. So stagnation actually causes me pain, so I realize I have to kind of move. And that happened because throughout my life, when I was younger, I didn't have the best guide as a father, so I created a lot of bad habits in my teenage years. But then I realized as had encountered the consequences of those, most of those ill-conceived decisions, that everything that I was experiencing was a result of these unchecked habits and rituals and things that I got into the habit of. So by default, and I'm thankful for this because there's always a silver lining, enough pain was created just through my life experience by not seeking growth and understanding how to confront trauma, how to understand what's going on in my mind, that it's now first nature for me to just pursue growth. And Tony inspired me on a level that no other man out there. Like I've read books on Mark Cuban, Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch, and the list goes on and on. But I really wasn't solely focused on financial gain. I really wanted that what I do leaves a positive impact in the minds and hearts of other humans. And Tony was that guy. So at 26 years old, I bought his book with a pack of cigarettes in prison, actually. I got into an accident when I was 22 years old, drinking and driving, and I actually went to prison for it. And I didn't know it then, but I needed a male role model. And when I saw his big smiling face on that book and my current situation, I just wanted a better life for myself. I wanted to be a better son for my mother. I wanted to be a better brother for my brothers and sister, and just desired to deal with the stuff that I didn't know how to deal with before, so that this way I could just be a productive human and live the life that I wanted to live. But at the same time, I I live in the world of extremes. I messed up pretty bad before and I was an extremist, but now I'm exploring the other side of that because the limitations that we adopt in most cases are handed to us, as opposed to ones that are really, really like limitations. So
Yes, yes.
it's a long-winded answer to your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. Actually, now that brings me up to another question. You did mention about the habits. You talked about changing the habits, developing new habits. If you can just share with us, like, what are the these new habits that you started to experience on day-to-day basis that helping you to shape you and to get you where you are and to be successful?
Well, first for me is health, like the gym. Thankfully, when I was 16 years old, my father took me to the gym and I got hooked. I loved the gym and I would train. So throughout my years, regardless of whatever state I was in, the gym was kind of like an equalizer for me. It was where I could take out my problems. It was my psychologist. It didn't it didn't give me advice, but everything that I wanted to leave in that gym, I left in sweat.
Yes.
And then I was able to think more clearly. Tony talks about being able to change anything by changing your state,
Yes.
changing your strategy, and changing your story, right? So one of the things that kind of was just commonplace throughout my life was the desire to continually push my body to the limit. And in certain cases, that was the only thing that I could really muster up because I had so much going on in my mind and all these other things pushing me and pulling me. Hitting the gym was mindless work of throwing the weights around that just kind of gave me some peace.
Yes.
So going to the gym, cold plunges. I mean, it's 60 degrees up here. I jump in the pool. I got a steam room here in the house, so I'll hit the steam. And these types of things that are around training and getting good rest. That's why I wear this Whoop just to track my sleep and recovery.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Taking good care of your health is very important. I think a lot of us we so much focused on wealth, money, 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 that we kind of forget this. The most important aspect is that without wealth, without health, there is no wealth. So I
Without
think it's
health,
very
there's no
important,
wealth.
yes, to take care of our health, to take care of the mind and the body, and you mentioned all of it above, yes. And I do this. I love to do this to the cold. I don't have the cold plunge, but I have the ocean. So
Yes,
my morning routine is kind of the same. To I take care of my body. I work out, and then I go to sauna, and then I go to the ocean. So now that in the winter it's cold, so that's kind of my cold plunge.
that's great.
Yes, yeah, and I love how you mentioned. Yes, Tony mentions this a lot. Change your story, change your life.
Change your story, change your life. I had the blessing, it was just a beautiful blessing that when I came into this world, I'm the oldest child of four, and it was my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great great grandmother to welcome me into this world.
Wow,
Four
what
generations
generations?
of loving, just gorgeous souls of women to bring me into this world. So 0 to 7 years old, amazing. Like it was just, I had a great childhood. I grew up in the desert in California, in the Mojave Desert in California, Lancaster. And that's actually back then, it was a really good place to raise kids, at least boys, because you can let them out the house and just climb mountains and chase snakes and lizards and all that fun stuff. But, I had a situation when I was 11 years old where, my father, who was a young father, he had me like when he was, 21. He and my mother were getting separated, but he thought that the best decision or best move was, I'm the oldest, so, have a conversation with me and then I can just take care of the household. But it, I wasn't ready for that conversation. Like he sat me down on the couch when I was 11 and it's like, look, Jake, it's not working out. Me and your mom, we're going separate ways. You're now the man of the house. And he left the next day. I was like confused. And then the confusion turned to anger. And then this is something that maybe your listeners can take a lot from. And I learned this the very, very, very hard way, that hatred and resentment rot the container that keeps it. Hatred and resentment rot the container that keeps it. So I had so much hatred for my father that he would betray me and my mother in the family. That's the story I created. That's the meaning I gave that event. And at 11 years old, when your father is your Superman, he's like Superman to you, like then it creates a lot of trust issues. It creates a lot of disbelief and doubt just in life. And the beauty of this journey that I was so blessed to have, I am so blessed to have had this experience. Now, it was a pretty painful journey, but I think that sometimes to get the wisdom and the blessings that life has for you, you have to be able to sit with pain. And no matter how rough or how hard or how difficult it is, and look at what part of you created it. You
Yes.
know, Rumi has a saying that it says, if you don't heal what hurt you, you will bleed on those who didn't cut you.
Wow, that's
And
very powerful. Yeah.
oh my gosh, here I am so young and
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a prison cell, and my mom, she drove 9 hours to come see me. And that week, I got into a fight with my cellmate. I didn't know my mom was coming. And now, instead of my mom being able to actually give me a hug, she has to just see me on the other side of this metal fence. She can't even give me a hug. And then I'm going back to and instead of 4 hours, it was only 30 minutes. And that's because my mother begged them. My mother begged them. And here I am, in this situation. And I said, man, if anybody hurt my mother, I would hurt them. And here I am hurting her the most,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, and that's it's very interesting that you actually had that realization. You were able to reflect. And that's very interesting because not everyone sees and be able to reflect on how you said it's you realize that you actually hurting her. It's not someone else. It's a beautiful story, and I love how you mentioned. Yes, it's like this kind of moments, these challenges, they're the ones that shape us to be who we are right now. And look at you right now. It's been a long and a painful journey, and in a
Yeah.
way, I can relate to you as well because my father left when I was like 6 or 7, so and I kind of had the same resentment against him. And just like you mentioned, like I created in my head the same story too. But then, I was living with that story for so many years. And when I got introduced to the Tony's world, just like you are, like that phrase was very powerful, change your story, change your life. Because when I actually understood the meaning of that,
Yeah.
I realized that this whole story was actually taking control of my whole life in every
Yeah.
aspect of it. So yeah, that's very powerful. That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. So now that actually brings me to another question. So you did mention in the beginning. I mean, you mentioned Tony, so I assume that he is a big mentor of you. Do you have any other mentors that you look up to, that you work with, and also if you can share like the importance of the mentors and how it
Yeah.
helps us to grow, to develop, and to grow the businesses.
Well, I wouldn't be where I am today without mentors. And, a lot of people don't know the distinction between a mentor and a coach. A coach, Michael Jordan's coach couldn't dunk a basketball from the free throw line. He couldn't do that. But he could see the area where if Mike just shifted his shot just a little bit, he would have more accuracy because he had trained himself to see those things for so long being a coach in the arena of basketball. Now, a mentor, they actually have the results that you seek. And I you know, Tony's a mentor, although, like through Platinum Partners, you only get so much talk time with Tony, right? But his content and the education throughout Platinum Partnership is invaluable for the purpose of just being able to make that 2 millimeter shift. If you've been working on yourself and you've done a lot, like you said, the story, the story I gave her when I was 11 years old, I didn't know any better, but my dad betrayed me. Betrayal cuts deep from a father. So as when I was doing the work with Tony, it's my father did the best he could with the resources he had at the moment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right? And then that shifts things. And then I start to have compassion for my father because, my father came to this country when he was 4 years old on a boat from Cuba. Like sometimes we only think about us and what's happened to us as a result of their decisions. But how many times do we put ourselves in their shoes and what their life experience has been? How rough did they have it learning a new language in a new country and mentorship has been massive. I mean, I've had a coach every year, or a mentor, I should say, mentor every year. And I think that it's in everybody's best interest to seek out the person that has the results that you want and study them.
It's interesting, like how, we so like, it's interesting how you just mentioned about that realization with your father as well. Like, like he had at that moment, these are the only resources that he had to, and whatever he could, he gave it to you. Because I literally had the same realization with my dad as well. And being able to understand that, and I think it's, being able to connect, like why people do what they do and take the full responsibility, for us, for our own action and understand the other person. I think it's very valuable. Yeah.
It's so important. And the final thing on that topic is when Tony teaches to blame effectively.
Yeah.
Where if you're going to blame them for all the bad, you better thank them for all the good. And a situation arose in my life where my father starts showing up at my house. I have a 2-bedroom. I always stay with 2 bedrooms just in case I have guests and stuff like that, even when I was single. And my dad starts showing up at my house all the time, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I enjoyed his company here and there, and we had kind of already made amends and stuff like that. But then he just one day is like, Jake, I might need to stay here because me and Bridget, his second wife, they're getting divorced. So I'm like, and then in my mind immediately I'm like, God, why? Like, what was like? It's not a situation like, I've grown over the area where you just get this reactive indignation, like, oh my God, I can't believe. Although I had a little bit of that in terms of like, God, I've done so much to distance myself from some of the behavior that my father exhibits and how he is and why this. Like, I don't want my dad in the street. I wasn't going to let that happen. I said, all right, Dad, yeah. So he ended up staying there. And guess what happened is I had the opportunity to sit with him and say, do you remember the conversation we had when I was 11 years old? And I was like, yeah. I said, do you remember what you told me? He goes, yes. And I said, what did you tell me? And he said it, you're the man of the house. And that was a big thing in my subconscious, that instead of taking responsibility head on, subconsciously I was fighting responsibility that I didn't believe I deserved at that young age. I just wanted to ride my bike with my friends and do kid stuff. I don't know what being the man of the house is. And I had the time to talk to him and say, Dylan, which is my stepbrother or my half brother, that you kind of have to be careful what you say to a young fragile mind. But I will say this, that although my life has been an adventure, and yeah, there are a lot of things that were not pleasant, I want to thank you, because had you put me in an Ivy League school and you did all these things and I had a posh life, I wouldn't be the strong motherfucker I am today. I would not be this person because I wasn't forced to encounter and overcome the obstacles that I created for myself. So Blaming effectively is such a powerful, self-development tool. If there's anybody in your life that has caused harm or has neglected to address certain things, what are the areas that you have become stronger as a result of that event that you're overlooking?
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that saying, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we became strong. Yes, and that actually, going through these challenges, it's what helps us to shape our character. And I kind of feel exactly the same way. If I wouldn't gone through all of this, like I wouldn't have what I have. And then also the way I looked at it is like, how do you know what is sweet if you've never tasted what is bitter? Like how do you, what is salty? Like how do you know, like, the daylight if you haven't experienced the night? So that's why, like we need to experience these challenges. The only
Exactly.
thing I would say is that experiencing them great, overcoming and learning, but not being stuck in them for too long.
Right.
Yeah.
I had the challenge of being a great comeback. Like I would bounce back. But then I was like, after so many of these bouncing backs, I'm like, am I a masochist? Like, why? And then I realized the subconscious mind is like a record player. And on this record player, there's a record. And on that record, there are grooves. Those grooves were either put there, some by you, but mostly by your life experience, your relationship with your parents, and these grooves are etched in that record, on that record player that's spinning in the subconscious. And no matter what we do in the conscious world, that record player is governing a lot more than we give than we actually know. So once I realized that, like Tony kind of enlightens us that you have to stand guard of the door of your mind.
Yes.
Stand guard of the door of your mind. Even at my young age of being in my late teens, and early 20s, I wanted change and I wanted it so bad that I was willing to assess every aspect of my life to see what is causing this pain, what is bringing this on about in my life. And one of the things that I realized is the hip hop music that I used to listen to, the rap music I used to listen to, was a form of toxic hypnosis where, like, when it dawned on me, I'm like, I grew up in a house full of women. It was my mom, my grandmother, my sister, and we have all these women. I would never use the B word in reference to a woman. And then here I am listening to music that objectifies women, glorifies violence and the sale and usage of drugs. I, a lot of people don't realize it because it's pop culture and it's a part of the culture and it's cool and they put a catchy beat. But then when I started to listen to lyrics, I was like, no, in good conscience, I cannot allow this into my psyche any longer. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that helped change a lot of things for the better. So whether it's a person in your life who doesn't believe in you, music that is not empowering, these things you have to stand guard of the door of your mind.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely love that. Well, now I would like to try. Thank you for sharing. You have a very, very fascinating, interesting journey. So now going back to the success journey. So you
Yes.
started in sales, and you mentioned to me you shared how you literally like knocked on over 10,000 doors being as a salesperson. So what are like the key lessons that you can share with inspiring entrepreneurs in terms of like the sales?
Well, one thing that I can say that I really loved about the experience of door knocking is you don't know what you're going to get on the other side of that door. It is probably the absolute best training anyone can get for being in the world of entrepreneurship, for a variety of reasons. One, you have to think quick on your feet. You have to be able to understand social cues and things of this nature, because you're just randomly knocking on somebody's door. They weren't expecting you. How can you get this person to, want to kick you off their doormat to having a conversation with you? What are some of the things that you could do to create a moment where this person wants to engage with you? I think one of the strongest characteristics that I developed as a result of cold calling and door knocking is the ability to not internalize other people's behavior or words that they say. Hey, F you, get off my door. What are you doing? Like, don't effing come back here. People hanging up on you. For me, I mean, initially, for the untrained, for people that don't have any experience, it can be like, you feel like that was kind of like personal, like, and you can't help but internalize it. The key is to have done it enough where that no longer has any bearing on how you feel about yourself and what your intended outcome is. Your intended outcome is much stronger than somebody hanging up on you. Your intended outcome is much stronger than somebody throwing a door in your face saying, F you, get out of here. That should be the preeminent vision in your mind, that somebody slamming a door in your face is great. I'm one door closer to where I need to be, because this is only numbers. So if 10 people say no, I'm that much closer to a yes.
Yeah, wow, I love that. I love that. So yeah, so don't take it personally, right?
Don't take it personal.
Then just keep knocking on the door. So basically, like, just keep going forward and forward, because that's kind of how you build up your self-confidence. The more you do this, the more you talk, the more you experiences, you build the self-confidence, and then always have the outcome at the end, where the outcome result that you're looking for. I love that. Now I wanted actually to talk a little bit more about the investment. So how did you transition to the investments? Like, what inspired you to actually transition and to start working on the real estate? Like, what was the shift that inspired you to transition to work on the real estate?
Well, when I joined Platinum Partnership in 2016, I didn't know what to expect, but one of my goals was to get a better understanding how I can achieve my financial goals. And I felt that the way that I was doing it, that there was probably a more efficient way. And I wanted to rub shoulders with people who were playing life at a different level. So what I realized in joining Platt is that I was a business operator. So like, I kind of put them in two categories. You have the entrepreneur, who's the operator, like, who's always thinking like, what can I do within the business to make it better? And then you have like the entrepreneur investor, who they're looking at, where's my time and money best allocated for the highest yield, for the best and highest yield. I didn't know that there was a distinction between a business operator and a business owner when I joined Platt. As I started, going on these trips and meeting these really cool people, I started just to pick out a few people that I saw how they moved, how they talked, how they walked, how they just do life. And I said to myself, I want what they have in terms of the time freedom to be away from their business without it imploding. So how do I get that? Like, what is it that they do? Most of these people that I looked up to were in multifamily real estate. So in the world that I now play in, it's what assets can I acquire that are going to fund my liabilities, that are going to provide me a surplus of cash that I can now reinvest the difference, and moved into a mindset that's no longer, within the business operationally, but what business or real estate can I acquire that's going to provide me cash flow, and move into the asset accumulation mindset. What I like about the distinction between the operator and the entrepreneur investor mindset is that an investor is looking, what are the ways that they can effectively allocate this acronym my coach last year taught me, and it makes a lot of sense. Your team. You have to protect your team, your time, your energy, your attention, and your money.
I love that. That's a great concept.
And as an investor, you're looking at what is the most effective way that I can allocate my time, my energy, my attention, and my money in an arena that, in my case, we're building the second largest mobile home park in the state of Florida. Now, the way I'm looking at this is there's a finite amount of input before this machine is now spitting out cash flow on a monthly basis, and my equity stake is going to reap the benefits of this month in and month out. Now, with having built this and spent the finite amount of energy and resources and time in doing this, this is now, once that cash flow is coming in, afforded me the ability to now resource other deals that will potentially do the same. But I'm accumulating assets that are spitting out cash flow. Obviously, there's operational components. We have a mobile home dealership, but my business partner's son is the one that has the license, and he'll be running it. I'm going to be in the mobile home dealership selling, for 6-8 months, could be a year, whatever it's going to take to get it off the ground. I'm going to basically apply all of my resources here to now get this plane off the runway. And as it's functioning without me, I'm still reaping the benefits of these 3 years finding the deal, finding the investors, putting the mobile home dealership together. And now as it's spitting off cash flow, I can just go ahead and rinse, repeat, find other mobile home park deals or large scale single family projects.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing. So now then talking about investment. So let's say like someone wants to invest. What would you say like few of the things that they need to know or they need to look out for?
Having spoken with countless investors over the last 3 years, when an investor is looking at a deal, the first thing they're looking at is my principal at risk. Can I
Yes.
lose all my money? Right. Second is like, what's worst case scenario? What is if market moves against me or what have you? And then third, what is the best case scenario for this deal? And in every, now, mind you, I'm relatively new. I mean, I have 3 years raising money for these deals that we're in. My business partner is 69 years old. He's been part owner of 27 different mobile home parks. He's built subdivisions in Colorado, 8 of them. Now, back in 2008, 9, 10, he had a few subdivisions that he was building and he was going vertical. Obviously, in that time frame, things got challenging for everyone in real estate. His financing froze and he lost it. So I feel very privileged to learn alongside of somebody who's experienced that amount of pain. We're talking about $30 million worth of real estate here. And now his strategy is where we don't take on debt. Like, we don't owe anything on these properties. We own them outright. Carrying costs for land are not significant in a worst case scenario. And the only debt we will take, and this is more strategic in nature, is a seller carry. You might get a 5-year interest only 6% loan. And the cool thing about that is, you can come back in maybe like 3 years and say, hey, look, I got 650 of the 800,000, 650 cash. So like there's these things that I've learned that had I not been learning alongside of him, I wouldn't have experienced. But I think from an investor standpoint, you want to look at what is your risk tolerance. Like I personally, I went through the whole crypto craze and there's all these different cryptos coming out, and I realized it's like gambling, most of it. I still own Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I still buy them because I actually believe in where we're heading as a society. If you just study the history of currency and what humans have utilized to transact from the beginning of time, what we exchange as money and what we view as like legal tender is has evolved so
Yes.
much.
So you did mention about obviously the first thing that the investors are looking is not how to is not to lose the money, not to lose the principal. So
Sure.
what would you say? Like what would be the strategies of not losing the money when you're investing?
Well, all of the real estate that we have purchased, we have found deals. These are off-market deals. For instance, the first deal we found, it was 1.8 million. The seller was 88 years old. He was not going to go through the process of annexing the property. That's what needed to take. He wasn't going to go through the process of the survey and the engineering. But throughout that process, the builder that we now have a ratified contract from, we bought that property at a significant discount. And the builder valued the property at 5.9 million. So when the investors saw the deal and the structure of the operating agreement, then because 70% to the investors, 30% to us for managing and putting it all together and seeing it through the process and getting it sold, it just made sense. So to find deals where you're limiting your risk based on, what the deal was acquired for. And I'm speaking specifically about real estate right now. Even this, I'm not even qualified to speak on. I've just had the experience of being able to go through these deals. And, so for those watching, this is not financial advice.
Disclaimer.
This is not financial advice. Don't follow anything I tell you to do. No, I don't tell you anything to do. I can tell you my life experience. I can tell you what I've experienced, but real estate has definitely been one of the foregoing things. Actually, real estate changed my life. So if we want to put it simply, real estate changed my life. Don't invest in new widgets and gadgets. And if you don't understand technology, don't start an e-commerce business. Just stay in the lane that you can understand and that you would plan in being for the long haul. Don't just get taken by the newest trend.
Yes. Yeah. So if you that brings me up to the next question. If you want to start all over again, like what would you do? If you would do anything different, where would you start? What would you start with?
I would get into real estate. I would get into real estate. I would I would have been in here a long time ago and stayed in it. I'm actually happy where I'm at now and how things played out because everything leading up to this moment strengthened the skill set that allowed me to have, the little bit of success that I've had thus far.
Yeah, okay. So then what would be your advice for someone who would like to start investing, for someone who wants to start investing in real estate? Like what would you be like advice?
I would say to to study somebody who has the results that you seek, like when you go online, you see the flashy stuff like Grant Cardone, not to take anything away from him and his style, but when you start like wanting to get coaching from somebody that high up, your cost to get in a deal with them, you're paying a premium or you're just for being having the proximity, the returns you get on deals are just they're a lot lower than if you find somebody who's hungry, who's less well known, who's on his journey, and you see that they have the skill sets and they have the way that their mind works makes them proficient in that area. Let's say underwriting deals in real estate. Add them to your network and then find the deals. Learn how to put some deals together with this person so you can see how they underwrite the deals. And then as you go, every little piece should be complementing the next step. And you need when you're putting these deals together, you have to know how to underwrite these deals. You have to know how to find the deals. You have to know what's gonna motivate a seller to sell you the property. there's a lot of little nuances that you can really only learn by doing. None of these things that they teach you online are always comprehensive. I like to learn by doing, but it's always best to learn by doing with somebody who's skilled. You don't want to just go out there and throw stuff around and make costly mistakes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great advice. Absolutely. Hands-on experience, going, underwriting, analyzing, risk mitigation. These are all great advices. Thank you. So let me ask you another question. You so busy in your investment projects, the financial success, and then also you're impacting the world. You're doing the speaking engagements. So how do you strike the balance between doing it all?
Everything complements everything else. Like the events, you're just meeting more people. You know, the everything complements everything else. I always like to structure everything, even if it's a business. There's always a spin-off of that business that doesn't take you away from your day to day. Like, let's say I just started doing more of this content creation stuff, and I had 1,000 followers on Instagram last year. I didn't put much stock in it, and you just got to think of in the world that we are now in, as opposed to the world that we were, where you have these referral based businesses and all this other stuff. And that's great. You get referrals, but you really don't have a business unless you have a platform that's developing trust with people at scale. We're being kind of ushered out of this attention economy, where your attention, every entrepreneur, big company is vying for your attention. So you have this TikTok, which is like crack in an app, and you have these videos, that are catching your attention. And then, people lose hours for just opening the app. The way it's designed is to capture your attention, because you won't even know what their attention is if they don't have your attention. So now people are getting hip to it, like myself. I don't open TikTok. My team, they post the stuff there and the following is growing, but I don't open the app, right? So we're now moving into an era where the people that are getting hip to it are now restricting themselves from these needless dopamine hits that are sapping all of their attention. And we're moving into the trust economy, where you've developed trust at scale with people.
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. Yes, I know with all this social media, there's overload with all this information, and definitely the attention, they constantly capture our attention. And I also catch myself on whenever I want to make a post, instead of actually making a post, I catch myself scrolling to all the other posts, and then the comments, the engagements, and then it just literally takes away your time and attention. And then that's kind of how we get distracted instead of just being focused on what matters the most. Yeah, that's actually, it's a very valuable feedback that you're giving. Well, I guess we're coming to the end. If anything else you would like to share with our viewers, any other advices that you would like to share, and then also if you wanna talk a little bit more about your project.
No, I mean, I could, maybe I send you my social media links, but I'm
Yeah.
everywhere the same.
Okay. Yeah.
J Cortez. And what I'll tell anyone listening is, especially entrepreneurs and new entrepreneurs, just don't create an expensive job. Like, sometimes you get into business and you think you're going to have all this freedom because you're an entrepreneur, and then you realize that you don't have any freedom because you're running the business, and if your managers don't show up, you're responsible. So if you really assess what your goals are you an artist at the core and you just want to make an impact in society by being there and leading and taking control of everything? Great, do that. Or you're an entrepreneur and you don't really care about the artistry or all of this other stuff, and you just would like to buy yourself true wealth, which is time and money. You can be rich with just money, or you can have time and money and be wealthy. then you would have to look at things in terms of how do I acquire cash flowing assets? And for my strategy is really how do I do this with the least amount of humans possible? Because that's eliminating, like people will get sick, people, they have these reasons they can't show up to work. But in my case, a mobile home park, there's once they're on the lot, they're paying their $600 a month lot rent times 3,000. That's 1.8 million gross a month. How can I do this over and over again, even if it's at a smaller scale? What about car washes? These are great money business. What about self-storage, laundromats, low maintenance? You don't need a lot of people to run these businesses. How can you just take something, understand the system through and through, and then just replicate it and replicate it? You can go the route of buying businesses, or you can go the route of real estate. I choose real estate. It's a lot easier for me to wrap my mind around and, just kind of like understand the integral pieces. Businesses can kind of be the same if you just have your mode of operation, and there's plenty of people that train people on that, like Cody Sanchez, Roland Frazier. But I prefer the real estate route. That's not to say that I won't own, businesses in other arenas or other industries, but I'm just of the school of thought that you might as well just pick a lane that works for you, build your cash flow up. So now where your assets are funding your liabilities and it's spitting off enough cash monthly that you have a surplus on top, you're reinvesting the difference, and you have some sort of liquidity available to take advantage of deals that are really good.
Yes, yeah, totally makes sense. Yes. So yeah, so it seems like you picked up the lane. This is great. You experienced a lot being in sales and leadership and now in real estate, and that's amazing that you actually got to the point where now you can live your life and experience the life, and you don't have to worry about paying the salaries, running the teams, training the team. And this is, I do agree, that's the most painful for the business owners is and a lot of them, like you spotted right on, instead of being business owners as they want to be, they're actually becoming a business operators. And yeah, and I do agree that the real estate, it's one of the vehicles that can actually produce that passive income for you. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all these valuable insights. Thank you for sharing your journey. It was very inspiring, and very excited to where you are right now and all the great things that are coming up for you. This is very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
I
thank
will
you.
share the link in the comments for those who would like to connect with Jake. I'll share all the social media profiles and everything. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your journey, your knowledge, your all the experiences and your success. This is remarkable. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.